Hello, everybody. You're listening to Chatting with Candace. I'm your host, Candace Horback. Before we get started on this week's episode, if you want to support the podcast, you can go to chattingwithcandace.com where you can sign up for our Patreon account, or you can click that little link that says Buy Me Coffee. Both things help me tremendously, like seriously, $1 helps. The benefit of being a Patreon is you get early access to episodes, you get shout outs. We're going to eventually start doing some live AMAs, so you do get a lot for your contribution there. But again, seriously, any of that helps, or simply leave a review. All of those things are really important, especially when I'm just getting started. This week, I'm really excited to introduce Aubrey Huff. I mean, he doesn't really need an introduction. He's a two-time MLB World Series winner. He's a father, a patriot, a very opinionated tweeter. Without further ado, Aubrey Huff. I wanted to start off a little bit with your baseball career, and you've been kind of open about you struggling with depression after you quit playing or stopped playing. I think that with a lot of high performers, they have that similar struggle, right? So it's almost like the higher the high, the lower the low, and you have all of these neurochemicals when you're playing, like all of these dopamine spikes and serotonin spikes, and you're just, like just experiencing life to a degree that a lot of people won't. So when you stop having that exposure and you come down to like real world, real world expectations, like how did you kind of self-correct so that you didn't stay in this place of like depletion, if you will?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people really realize how difficult it is to transition as a professional athlete. I played 13 years and basically every night, especially at the end of my career, the last 3 years of my career, especially, I was in the playoffs twice and won the World Series in 2010 and 12. So you're on national television, you got 40,000 people screaming at you. You're on first class flights. You got beautiful servers serving you beer and first class meals on the flight. You're at a 5-star restaurant. Everywhere you go, things are free. I mean, you're a rock star. You're a celebrity. And, it just feels like everything's catered for you. It's a unicorn life. It's absolutely amazing. And then when it stops, Candace, it stops like that. There's no like gradual decline. It's over like that. And so to get that adrenaline rush, that high, that spoiled lifestyle, if you will, it just doesn't exist in the real world. And I feel like whenever I got out of baseball, I was still chasing that, trying to find out how I'm going to make $500,000 every 2 weeks, right? How am I going to replace that 40,000 people screaming at me or walking into a restaurant where everybody notices you? That doesn't happen anymore. Nobody gives a fuck anymore, right? So, it took me a while. Honestly, it took a couple years where I struggled mightily with depression. Just what's my identity? If I'm not Aubrey Huff, the baseball player, who am I? What's my purpose? And at the time, well, I still do. I had 2 boys, and I wasn't thinking in this way because my whole life I was a baseball player. How do I navigate through this? And then one day I realized, okay, either A, I'm going to have to kill myself because I can't keep living like this, or I'm going to have to figure this out. And there was a point, it was around 2014, 2 years after I retired. Every day I was going through daily depression, crying myself to sleep at night. There was a daily panic attack that would come almost daily. So I was battling both of them at the same time. And it was 5:00, 2 years after I retired. I'm having dinner, making dinner with my ex-wife at the time. I'm cutting up the vegetables. She's cooking. My kids are playing Legos on the living room floor. And I'm having a panic attack again. And I told my ex, I said, hey, I got to go to the closet and do my thing, whatever. Usually go pop a Xanax. This time I didn't pop a Xanax. Go to my closet. I hit my knees and I just start crying. I'm freaking out. I'm over it. And I'm looking at this full length mirror. At the time I had like a wife beater on, right? I had the tattoos on. So I got these tattoos and the goatee and shaved head. And I look like this badass motherfucker. But deep down, I hated who I was. I hated what had happened in my life and what I've lost. And in that moment, I just said, fuck it, I'm done. And I just typed in a little code in my safe, pulled out a .357 Magnum, pulled the hammer back, and I put it against my temple, looking at myself in the mirror on my knees in my closet. And all of a sudden, there was just like this flash that went through my mind of my dad. And my dad, years earlier, when I was 6 years old, was murdered by a 357 Magnum when I was a kid.
Wow.
So it was like full circle, like this flash of like, wow, I don't even know where it came from.
Mm.
And so I put the gun down, started crying. I started yelling like in the closet at God, and because I grew up in Texas as a Christian, but I just didn't understand why I couldn't be happy. And then it just kind of after like a hissy fit, like a teenager yelling at his father, that's what I was doing in my closet. And it just kind of came to me that, dude, you've been identifying yourself as a baseball player these last 2 years. You're no longer a baseball player. You are a husband and a father. Be that. You are blessed. You got everything you've ever wanted. You got 99% of the things that every man's ever wanted. Just now enjoy it. And it was in that moment where I just kind of really started appreciating what I have instead of what I lost. And that changed everything. And it was just a mindset, a mind shift. And that experience kind of opened me up to it.
Wow. That is a very powerful story. There's like a couple places I want to go with that. So I always say that like when you identify yourself by like these external factors, especially when it's your career, and especially if that career tends to be like celebrity or public figure, that can be very problematic because the shelf life of all of that is so little, right? Compared to almost any other industry. Like you have an expiration date. So if you put too much emphasis on this thing that's finite, like what do you do when it's gone, right? And it's understandable that you get anxious or panic attacks or depression because that's how you've identified. So I think it's really important to kind of like dig down and find out who you actually are, but like outside of these things, and like finding faith and finding family. Like those are really great pillars versus something that is going to go away. So it's kind of similar with me, but in a different aspect, right? So I did porn for 10 years, and so many people.
I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't? That's so funny. Yeah. So like I constantly get put into this box where people want to stereotype me and identify me as that. And for a long time that like I started getting anxious, like to the point where I started getting like social anxiety. And I've never had that before, but I would walk into a room and I would be like, everyone knows what I do. Like they recognize me, they're judging me. They think I'm this terrible person. Am I this terrible person? And all of this like crazy inner dialogue that took a really long time to kind of get over. But I was listening to Giselle Bundchen talk, and she's obviously like this wildly successful supermodel that now spends a lot of her time on her platforms talking about spirituality and like conservation and all of that. And everyone's like, who is she? She's just a dumb supermodel. And she's like, I'm not a supermodel. That's just something that I did. Right. So that's how I started to reframe it as well, as like, I'm not that. That's just something that I did. So I think it's so important for people to really like find out who they are. Would you say like in that moment was it almost like an instant, like you kind of like knew that you had to start looking at things with gratitude, or was there like a process?
No, honestly, the minute I walked out of that closet, I had like basically stayed in there for like an hour and a half, yelling, crying. I mean, there was a lot of, I think as a guy, a lot of men, especially ex-athletes, were taught to be warriors out there, not to let any emotion in, and kind of put this wall up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I learned. And it even went into my home life, right? Where you just have this wall of emotion you keep in, bottled up, whatever's bothering you, you just don't show any emotion. And I'd done that my whole life. And in that 2 hours, I think I let all that emotion out. It was almost like I was a balloon ready to pop.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute I walked out of that closet, I felt way better, way looser, and felt like I knew what I needed to do. And I knew what I wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I wanted was nothing. I didn't need anything, right? And I was trying to replace a life that is hard to replace with something else that I didn't know what to do. Like, so I just said, you know what? I'll never have to work again. I've made plenty of money. I was begging for this all these years I was playing mid-summers when I was dying on these 6-hour road trips. Now I'm here. Let's enjoy it. And it was literally a mindset, like a shift in that moment. And the next morning I woke up and I just felt at peace, right? It was weird. Now, it's not to say that I didn't still experience some discontentment. I definitely had some days, more often than not, that probably within the next 6 months after that, where I was just kind of like fighting that old self and that old way of thinking. but it didn't control my life anymore. The panic attacks started getting less and less, to the point where they just kind of dissipated over the next 6 months. And I started weaning off my Xanax over that course of that 6 months. So it was a mindset in that moment immediately that got me excited. And that gave me that, because you can't do anything, I don't think, unless you make a decision and you get excited about it. If you just say, yeah, I think I'll give this a try, you'll never make it. You got to be excited about it. You got to make the decision. And I did in that moment out of that closet, and I'm going to change my life, my way of thinking. And, through those next 6 months, I just every day got better and better and better. I think that's one thing that everybody reaches out to me. Hey, how'd you get over the anxiety and depression? And did it happen overnight? And I think everybody in this quick fix, social media, news driven world where everything wants information, everybody wants information quickly, things done for them quickly, a quick pill. I hate to say this to people, but it did take me a little time. It may be different for others, but it's a decision. You got to change your mindset. You got to figure out what's really going on in your head, because you just can't mask it with pills, right? You got to figure out what's really triggering you to think the way you think. And then once you figure that out, like for me, it was still identifying myself as an ex-baseball player when there was no evidence to the contrary. So, once I stopped doing that, and then decided that I was just going to be the best dad, husband I could be. And well, I'm divorced now. So, but I'm still, for me, my boys are everything. And just my message of getting all this out here, talking about all this stuff is, I think, helping a lot of people. And that's another thing that I think people need to realize is one of the biggest things for me is talking about it. The more you talk about your anxiety and your depression and share it with others, it's scary at first, and it may even make you panic a little bit more than you would normally. But the more you talk about it with other people, the more you talk about it with people who are struggling, the more you heal. And when I do these on podcasts, I got to tell you, when I first started talking about this on podcasts even, I would have to call a timeout and be like, I can't even get through that story myself in the closet with a gun to my head without having to take a quick timeout because I was hyperventilating just talking about it. And now I'm so at ease talking about it on stage with kids, wherever I go. Sometimes I do some public speaking, obviously not of late with the pandemic. I hate that word, pandemic.
I know.
Stupid. That's what the media's done to us, right? With this bullshit fake virus out there. That's what I call it. But so the more I've talked about it, the more I've been honest with myself, the easier it is.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful because like you said, you are this very masculine man, right? You were a professional baseball player. You've got the beard, the tattoos, all of this. And then here you are talking about your emotions and, advocating to talk to other people about your emotions. And I think there's such a huge misconception that if you are this masculine man, you're not allowed to talk about your feelings. And I think we need to kind of get rid of that garbage because it's doing a lot of harm. Men suffer the most when it comes to suicide rates, right? We don't talk about that. And you're seeing a spike in depression with young boys. And there's a lot of reasons why we're seeing that. But we're not fixing it by saying you can still be masculine and have emotions. Those things don't have to oppose one another. So I guess what's your advice for someone who's I'm too manly to talk about being sad? I'm sure you probably have some of those messages or DMs that are secretive. What advice do you give someone who thinks that those things can't coexist?
Well, I know they're lying to themselves. First off, these people that the men that are coming at me, I don't need all that emotional nonsense. I know deep down probably if it's not happening now, at some point it will. Well, you'll be crying yourself to sleep at night. You have to have somebody to talk to. You can't keep all that stuff bottled in. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're at the top of your profession and as a CEO in the sports arena, whatever it is you do. I don't care if you're the biggest hunter in your group out in Texas with the biggest beard and drink the most Bud Lights. I don't care. Eventually it's going to catch up to you unless you get in touch with your emotions. And I know that sounds in this day and age where, I think men are under attack more than anything.
I agree.
I think it's starting with our school system with our young boys. I feel like the gender roles are trying to be reversed in today's age, where society is trying to make men women and women men. And it's confusing. And I think it confuses men more than anything. I've got a lot of thoughts on this, but you know, I think as kids, especially as a father of two young boys, I've kind of, my eyes are open to what's happening in the
Mhm.
world. And the schools are teaching these progressive ideals. There's an attack on our young boys and girls in society, teaching them that, at the age of 4 or 5, they can choose their own gender. I
Mhm.
mean, what planet are we on? What
Right.
kind of confusion is that? I don't care if you want to be, bisexual, if you want to be transgender, you want to live your life the way you want to live your life when you're 18 years old, make that decision. You go nuts. I don't
Right.
care. But when
Mhm.
you start trying to indoctrinate our kids at such a young age, that's where I fucking draw the line. It pisses me off, when
Mhm.
that starts in schools. As young boys, like I was a rambunctious young kid, and whenever I was in school, I was in detention all the time, and teachers thought there was something wrong with me, and give him some Ritalin, make him calm down. My mom wouldn't do it,
Oh, good
and
for her.
yeah, and there's a lot of boys out there, and boys are rough. They're wild. It's like that Gillette commercial. You saw that Gillette commercial with the boys wrestling in the yard and the guys are barbecuing. No, guys are, like this is society. They're supposed to wrestle,
Mhm. Mhm.
and you're confusing young boys. And when they become men now, and that's why I think we see all these kids now that are these, 18 to 25-year-old kids that are begging for free college, that are hitting the streets, rioting, protesting, because they've been given everything their whole life, been told
Mhm.
they're special. They're the participation trophy generation, I call them, Candace, where,
Mhm.
they never had to earn anything. They had a trophy for third place, right? Now they're in the real world. They've realized it doesn't work that way. You have to
Mhm.
actually earn your first place spot. And now they're pissed, and now they're on the streets, and they're easily manipulated by what's going on and what they're told to do. So there's just not a lot of strong men raised, and I blame society, and I blame a lot of parenting as well to not be able to see this.
Yeah, it's tough because you do get some parents that maybe are working so much that they're not able to be as involved, or that they maybe naively trust the school system to be taking care of their kids as they would take care of their kids. So they're not asking the questions when the kid comes home, like, what did you learn today? Like, tell me what teacher so and so said about this, right? And just like really double checking everything. I was listening to someone's podcast, or maybe it was in a book, where they were talking about like a lot of the best all boys schools like in the world, they don't even have like chairs. Like, they don't have chairs for the boys, because right when they're younger, because they don't expect a boy to be able to think and sit at the same time, is what they're saying. So like they understand these biological differences, and rather than like punish a boy for being a boy, they say, we expect you to be a little bit crazy and rambunctious, and if you want to run around the class, that's fine, get it out, but we also have to learn these things. So I was reading something that said that you weren't like ever into politics or really voicing your opinion too much, like while you were in baseball. Would you say that having your boys like got you more involved in these like social topics and made you want to use your platform to spread what you think is the right way to go?
1 billion%. Like,
Mhm.
when I played baseball, actually, Candace, I didn't even know who was president. Didn't care. Didn't care. I was hitting baseballs. I figured hitting the 2-0 slider with 40,000 people booing me, handling the media people all the time was enough to worry about. I didn't need to worry about politics. Honestly, did not care.
Mhm.
As long as, like, I feel like so many people in this world make an excuse about who's president for their life sucking.
Mhm.
Like, I don't care. I played 13 years. I played through multiple presidents.
Mhm.
And, and not one time did I know who was president. All I knew, I was making bank. I was
Mhm.
I was hitting bombs and cashing checks. Didn't care who the president was, right? So
Uh-huh.
I hate when people blame the their situation on the government or presidents. Right now, even if, as I'm a Trump supporter, as you know,
Mhm.
if Trump doesn't pull this out and Biden is in fact our president, I get people in my messages all the time. Ha ha, Biden's your president. I'm like, so what, motherfucker? Guess what? I'm still rich. I don't care. How about you? So, yeah, so that was one thing that, and I didn't want the distractions of politics, being an athlete. You see all these social justice warrior athletes now, and they lose half their fan base, right?
Mhm.
Because, they're going to divide them. Most fans want to come to the game to see athletes play.
Mhm.
They want to be distracted from the outside world, from the politics. They want to come to the stadium to watch athletes play sports. That's what
Mhm.
they're paid to do. And then when they hear their favorite athlete spew social justice warrior stances like LeBron James and all these, you're just like, ugh, I don't want to hear it. And as an athlete, I knew that. And playing in liberal San Francisco for 3 years out of my last, my career, I knew that if I came out as a conservative, guy, and at the time, Trump wasn't even close to being president. It was 2010 through 12. But, I was a conservative and I had strong views. I could never come out in San Francisco and say I'm a conservative guy for them. They'd hate me. So I just kind of left that, and I wasn't very heavy into social media. Never did any of that stuff. And then once I retired and I kind of got through all my issues, and I had my boys, and I started watching what's going on around the world, and just kind of cluing out. I started to become an adult, and like trying to see what's happening for my kids' futures. If I was single, well, I am single, but if I had no kids, I'd be down out in the mountains in a van down by the river, like old Chris Farley said back in Saturday Night Live, just watching the world burn. Wouldn't care. Wouldn't care. But I have 2 boys, and I have to be aware of what's going on in the world, in society, with what society is trying to do for our children, boys and girls alike. And I think it's most, I think it's more of an attack on young boys, to be quite honest with you. And it's pissed me off. It's raised awareness for me. And it's been a pretty big part of what I've been doing on Twitter and Instagram and things of that nature, which, oddly enough, I'm censored like a son of a bitch right now.
Oh, are you?
Oh my gosh. It's unbelievable. Both my Twitter and my Instagram I may as well not even be posting right now.
Really?
That's how you know you're telling the truth.
See, I feel like your engagement's pretty solid, I would say, like comparatively. I was like looking at your account and a couple other like comparable ones, and mine is like so throttled. And it got throttled when I started like reposting certain conservatives and like voicing my conservative thoughts. And then all of a sudden I just saw my engagement tank. And I'm like, this doesn't even make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I'm like, I'd maybe just like take a break and then like hopefully that goes away. Or
I have a verified blue check mark on my Instagram, right? And you cannot find my account unless you type in my username all the way to the very last letter.
Oh, really?
And even then, it's the very bottom blue check mark of all choices for my name. It's unbelievable.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm scrolling right now and if I don't even see you.
Type in Aubrey Huff, you won't even see it.
Yeah, you're not there.
So you have to put in Huff Daddy 76. And even when you put Huff Daddy 7, it still doesn't come up until you put the 6. It's unbelievable.
Holy cow, you're not joking. There you go.
And it's like the very bottom, isn't it?
Yep. Well, I just gave you a follow.
There you go. And it's fine. I mean, my post, I was getting probably on my Instagram 50,000, 60,000 likes on each post with 500 to 1,000 comments. Now 2,000, 3,000 likes with maybe 30 comments. It's unbelievable. Within the last month, it's just happened.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's not fair. It's really not fair because I feel like that's when we all learn who we are and what we believe is when we're challenged. And if you just live in this like echo chamber of everyone saying like, this is the only way to think, you can't grow or find yourself. And I think that's why you see so many people that are unhappy is because they haven't done any of that work and they haven't been challenged.
Yeah, I'm a huge, obviously, pro-American. I'm a guy from Texas, right? I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in the First Amendment. And I think what's happening more than the biggest fight we have on our hands right now is the fight for our First Amendment rights. The freedom of speech. The world is just, being a guy in the locker room, all these years, and the language flows freely. Right? It's just needless to say. And the world has become so sensitive, so soft, so pussified. This political correct nonsense is just killing me. We are, as a society, placating to all these people that it's a small percentage of society that gets offended by everything. And we're stepping aside and appeasing these people. Like, fuck them, right? Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to do that. So I tell my boys, if you have a thought, if you have an opinion, never, even if it's against a teacher, especially against a teacher in today's world, if you can listen to your teachers at school when it comes to, science or math or, all these things that they're teaching. But when it comes to them talking about their opinions and their theories on life, I want it to be like that Charlie Brown episodes right? Where the teacher's like, wah, 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 wah. Where it goes one ear, out the other. Because I want them to think for themselves. I don't want my kids to necessarily be Republicans or Democrats or believe what I believe in. I want them to have the freedom to choose for themselves. And I feel like that's what we've lost in this country, the freedom to choose for ourselves and our First Amendment rights. And it's a scary place, Candace, where we're living right now. And I don't think the society really understands what's happening. We've been taking all these things away over the last 8 months that it's been so one thing every like 2 or 3 weeks. It's just been pumped into our brains. It's been slowly manipulated into us to now that we're just, as a society, like sheep. And everybody's just, okay. It's tyranny. We don't even see it. Most people,
yeah. I remember like one of your tweets, I think it was like today or yesterday, and you're like, just so you know, in a couple months, it'll hit the 1 year mark for the 2 weeks to slow the spread. I'm like, how isn't anyone more outraged? So my husband owns a couple of restaurants, and both of those are obviously getting hit pretty hard. But thankfully in North Carolina, it's not as restrictive as say like, LA specifically. But if you spent the last decade of your life building a company and then the government just says you can't open, I don't understand how people aren't more infuriated. Like if it got down to that level of lockdown in North Carolina, I promise you we're staying open, right? We're not going to let our governor tell us that we have to close our doors. Like, how does that make sense? Like, that's not American. But for some reason we have like so many people that are just so agreeable and they just want to comply. And I'm like, but you have to ask why. Like, none of this makes sense. Like, I just reposted this video of this woman who she's now not even allowed to do outdoor dining in California. And right in the same parking lot, they have tents set up for production crew. And that's allowed.
Yeah. So, Candace, I live here in San Diego. I'm 2 hours south of LA. Governor Newsom, that's our governor. The guy's a complete dictator. What a joke this fucking guy is. I can't even tell you how bad. There's a very few people out there that, I would walk down the street and want to just, and he's one of them. So yeah, that's the one thing that drives me absolute batshit crazy are these small business owners. They bitch and complain about their business is about to be shut down. Yet they follow every mandate to a T. Like anybody comes into their store or the rest, please make sure you have your mask over your nose all the way till you walk into the restaurant and then sit down. Then you can take it off. Sir, they're always bugging you with the mask nonsense and all these little mandates and all these things. And then when they're ordered to shut down, they do it immediately. Yet they bitch. Okay. I understand the first time it happened. Okay, everybody's shutting down. I give you a pass on that. Nobody knew what was going on. I feel bad for you. Now the second time this is coming around and you continue to listen to these tyrannical governors that they defy their own orders, yet you have to shut down and you do, and you listen to them. I no longer feel bad for you. You deserve what's coming to you. So you don't have a spine. You can't reason for yourself. And people are like, well, Aubrey, that's very insensitive of you to say, because what if they have to pay a fine? Would you rather pay the fine or go bankrupt and lose your business? And to me, it's unconstitutional for them to fine you.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so like, what's the deal with the fines? Because I know there's one gym in Jersey specifically that's been getting like a lot of press. And I want to say it's like $4,000 a day or something that they're getting fined.
Ian Smith, I had him on my podcast when I had my podcast on. So we're buddies, right? We're boys. We keep in touch all the time. So he's Ian Smith. He's got a gym up in Jersey called, what's the gym called? Yeah, it didn't matter. Anyway, he's been open he's been spitting in Governor Murphy's face over the last 8 months, just staying open, just giving him the proverbial middle finger, right? And Governor Murphy got to the point where I think he even got arrested, taken to jail overnight, and he was bailed out, obviously. He's got a GoFundMe for all his lawyer's fees. I think it's up to like 400-something thousand now.
Wow.
And he's getting fined. He's been on Tucker Carlson like 4 times. Big beard guy.
Yeah.
I think he's getting fined like, I think $19,000 a day or something.
Holy cow.
Like right. Just, and so he's not paying it. It's just tallying up. It's literally unconstitutional for the government to fine you for keeping your business open. So any of these fines that they give you, just wipe your ass with it. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too, is that what, like, at the end of this, if you do take it to the courts, that it's just going to get knocked down.
It's just going to cost you a lawyer fee, right? Just
Mhm.
get yourself, and I would assume most lawyers are probably going to, not really hammer home on this, and kill you with the fees. I mean, I think
Hopefully not.
there's going to be so many people battling these fines. It's going to be overwhelming for the courts. They're going to toss it out. There's no way that they're going to be able to uphold this stuff.
Mhm.
And what I am seeing out here in California, and the media is not showing, that you won't
Mhm.
see on the media, is a lot of businesses are fighting back and saying screw you, and they're staying open. But you notice the media don't show that because they don't want people to be encouraged and emboldened, right? So they want to
Mhm.
keep people in fear that everybody's doing it. No, not. In fact, here in Southern California, most businesses are still open. Most restaurants are still open. They're still eating outside. A lot of them are still just doing takeout, but I think people are just like over it.
Mhm.
And to be honest with you, what cops are going to enforce this stuff? Most cops aren't, because most of these are democratically held cities where they wanted to fund the police.
Right.
Most cops get it. Most men in uniform, whether it be military, firemen, cops, etc., athletes, I'd say vastly 80% plus are conservative. So
Mhm.
they're not going to listen to this bullshit either.
So why do you think that is? Because I agree. I would say, like, definitely most military and most law enforcement tend to be conservative. So do you think it's just because they tend to be more constitutionally conservative, or why? Where's that correlation?
I think it's because most of the people that are they're military, they're country boys, or
Mhm.
grow in the country, and that's typically you grow up loving God and country, and you're taught the value of hard work. Most athletes, etc. We're capitalists. You can't be
Mhm.
a liberal and be a capitalist. So
Mhm.
most athletes and entertainers want to keep their money, which baffles me why Hollywood so many people are liberal. I'm
I
like,
don't
what?
get that either. I'm like, do you want
Like,
to just light it on fire? What's
right,
the
right.
point?
Which leads me to believe they don't, these are the people that talk about it, but they don't have to pay their taxes. I guarantee it.
Mhm.
They're probably getting kickbacks, especially the big followers on social media. But yeah, I think a lot of it's just because, most athletes, we work hard. We're raised right. Um, we weren't, I think vastly most conservatives grew up playing outside, rough and tough, and out hunting and playing and working out and playing sports. And we weren't manipulated by, we took our schooling seriously.
Mhm.
Not to say we're stupid, but that wasn't like, we weren't, bookworms and listening to teachers and listening to media, and being indoctrinated by
Mhm.
television and society. And so I think that's another thing, predictive programming, kids watching all these crazy cartoons nowadays and things,
Yeah.
that's subconsciously getting in their head.
Mhm.
So, I think that's a big thing that, it's a good question, to be quite honest with you. And I've given it a lot of thought. I can't give you a for sure answer, but that's my theory.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm always curious about that because we see so much judgment when it comes to someone even being moderate nowadays. Like, if you are not, like, way left of center, then you're the enemy and you're this terrible person. But then you have to look at these people that have, like, an innate sense of duty. Like, it takes a very, very brave and specific type of person to sign up for the military or to sign up to be a police officer. And most of them tend to be conservative. So how are we going to demonize these people that are literally risking their lives for your freedoms? Like, we can't say they're all bad. So there's something there. I'm sure someone's probably done a study, but I just wanted to get your take on it because I think it's so interesting.
Yeah. I don't know, as athletes, especially, I know this, I've tweeted this out before, and people are like, oh, bullshit. No way. Like, I think more, I would say more baseball than anything. I can't speak for NFL or NBA because I know that this would not be the right number. But I
Mhm.
would say baseball players, I'd say 85, 90% of baseball players are conservative.
That's so
And
interesting.
yeah. Um, if you think about baseball, is a southern sport. It's played in the spring when it's got to be warmer. It's a little cool north. So you don't have a lot of, like, people up north, you tend to get more liberal up in the northern
Mhm.
states, right? So you don't have a lot of baseball up there.
Mm.
Most baseball is Arizona, Florida, Texas, the southern states, and all the southern states. Most kids playing baseball are raised in that conservative arena, and
Mhm.
so that's kind of my theory on that. And when you're playing football, you play football in the winter. That's up in the northern states.
Mhm.
Basketball, same thing, played in the winter, could played anywhere. So I just kind of feel like how you're growing up and when your sport is played during the season kind of dictates how you grew up. I mean, that's about as good a theory as any, I think.
Do your boys play sports?
Okay, so they're X Games sporters, which drives me fucking nuts, to be honest with you. Obviously I grew up in Texas and I live in Southern California now, and people are like, how the fuck do you still live there? I'm like, unfortunately, I'm stuck. I can't leave. I got split custody with my boys, and my ex loves it here. But I guess it's easy to love living here when you're getting paid $20,000 a month in alimony, right? So, so yeah, I'm stuck here, but that's okay. I mean, there's worse places to be stuck. So they like surfing. Well, my oldest likes surfing. My youngest likes boxing, which is pretty cool. I'm trying to get my youngest into baseball more because he throws right, he hits lefty, he's got it. He's got that swing where I know he's 10 years old. I know he's got the swing to have a chance if he wants it, right? But the challenge today with kids is, do you have kids?
Yeah, I have one. He actually turns 1 this week.
Oh, congratulations. Awesome.
Thank you.
So he's a Sagittarius baby.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you know your zodiac. Yeah.
I'm a Sagittarius myself, so I know
really?
that. December 20th. It's coming up. I'll be 44 in 9 days.
Well, happy early birthday.
Thank you. The challenge is getting these kids off technology nowadays, right? Like there's so many distractions out there, video games, etc. Now, I'm no video game Nazi, but I've had to realize how to battle this, right? And I think as a 1-year-old, and I tell people this all the time, here's a great way to handle it. Say they're on iPads, right? Or whatever their devices are. An iPad typically lasts 4 hours, possibly 5 hours on a full charge. You charge it all week, right? You charge it on a Sunday. It's got 100% power. You give them that iPad or whatever device it is they want. Okay, you got about 5 hours on this device throughout the week. You can play all 5 hours right now, or you can space it out throughout the week. Now, the first week they had it, they burned it out within the first day, right? And then after a while, they started realizing, wait, I can only play a certain amount of time or I'm going to get screwed tomorrow. So they'll only play like 20 minutes at a time on an iPad throughout, and then before you know it, they've got it down to where they're only playing like 25, 30 minutes a day. And they know exactly how long they can play throughout the day, it's worked out great.
That's pretty brilliant because it's not like completely you're understanding like this thing exists and you can't completely get rid of it.
And it gives them responsibility to understand how to dictate their time and to use these things responsibly. Now, don't get me wrong. There's certainly times as a single dad when I got 2 boys, 12 and 10, where they're driving me batshit crazy. I'm like, you know what? Go downstairs. I don't care for 3 hours. I don't care. I just need I'm going to take in a nice movie, a bottle of wine. You guys go play your video games. See you later. And they're like, yay! Certainly there's times for that. And I'm okay with that. But you got to stay sane somehow, some way.
Yeah, I was going to ask why you were still in California because it just didn't make sense, but that all adds up. So I know earlier you mentioned like you are homeschooling. Is that just because of like lockdowns or?
Yes. Yeah. So my ex and I, we get along great, actually. We're great with scheduling. We're very civil, so that's great. And one thing I've always wanted to homeschool them 1 year, just to try it, especially the way public school systems are now.
Especially in California.
100%. And so I figured this year, what better year to do it? Because we had the chance to put them back in school. Everything was starting to open up again, and we're thinking, oh, they're going to have public school. I was like, no way. I saw what's coming, right? This is going to kick back up in December. Schools are going to close down again. We're going to pay all this money for private school to put them in. And then we're going to be learning from home, still paying $12,000 a month.
Right.
So I'm like, let's just go ahead and homeschool. So we're homeschooled. We got a tutor that comes by every day for 3 hours. They knock their work out in 3 hours. So from 9 to 12, they're done.
Wow.
And then we have the rest of the day to hang out. And what's cool is like I can take them on a trip. Anytime I want, just hop in the truck. We'll go on a trip. They can learn. They can do their tutoring online, FaceTime with their tutor, or if they have a question, or they can just do it on their own. It's really simple. Even I could do it if I wanted to, but
Mhm.
I can't be a dad and be a teacher at the same time. It doesn't work that way. Not for me anyway. I don't have that kind of patience.
No, I don't think I would either. We go back and forth with the education stuff, so it's nowhere near as, like, radical as it is out there. So I guess, like, how old are they?
They're 12 and 10.
12 and 10. So, did you one of my girlfriends, lives actually pretty close by to you. She was explaining some of the stuff that she has to have, like, her kid go to, like, one of them was, like, the sex ed, and it was pretty wild. I think it was, in 6th grade. I don't know how old they are in 6th grade. Probably, like,
12.
around 12? Yeah, so in 6th grade, they were having their sex ed class, and if you didn't, like, have your kid like, a reason for pulling them, like, you could get fined, but what they were teaching them is, like, alternatives to sex include, and they start, like, listing toys, and they listed anal sex for a kid, and I'm like, "This is so crazy," because I didn't even know that was an option until, like, college, right? Like,
Right, right.
I was like, I didn't know that there was other things that we could do, but you know what I mean? Like, I was just very, I guess, naive or innocent, whatever it was. But I'm like, that is way too young, and that's so dangerous. It's like the easiest way to get an STD. You can get seriously injured. Why are we teaching that? And then that's what the state is saying is appropriate. So I guess as someone who's conservative or moderate or just recognizes that this isn't appropriate, like, how do you handle issues in the school system with two boys?
It's funny, Candace. I mean, when I was my oldest son's age, 12 years old, I was trying to figure out how to tuck my heart on into my belt buckle. Right.
My
That was
husband's talked about that.
that was the biggest problem I have. I have to, right. I mean, that was the biggest sexual thing we all had to worry about as young
Uh-huh.
boys. Oh my gosh. And what they have to deal with now. So right now, thankfully, where I live, we haven't had that issue yet.
Oh,
We
good.
haven't heard about any sex ed in our kids' classes, et cetera. So next year he goes to junior high school in a different school. So that may be a different story. I'll have to find out. Um, I, I really don't, I know there's a lot of influence in public school systems, but I also believe that, if you're well in tune into your child's life as a parent, you can kind of eradicate all that bullshit when they come home, right?
Mhm.
What did you learn at school today? You can tell them what's nonsense, what's not, and I'm always feeding them, my views, right? But I also
Mhm.
tell them, I want you, does this make sense to you? What,
Mhm.
what did what I say make sense to you? Does it feel good in your gut? Does it feel good in your spirit and your heart? If it does, believe it. If it doesn't, kick it out.
Mhm.
So they'll come home with some things that they say at school. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, or it doesn't. So I think you got to be really wary, especially in the public school system, what your kids are learning, what
Mhm.
their teachers are saying. And what's been really cool about this online learning is you've seen some of these videos of these teachers, like parents catching them talking about trying to indoctrinate their kids into this liberal bullshit, talking trash about Donald Trump and, trying to really spew their political ideologies onto their children. And so that's been kind of eye opening over the last year or two.
Yeah, I think you're gonna start seeing more parents that get involved. Like, I was talking to Gad Sad, he was just on the podcast, and he was saying with one of his kids, he noticed that, like, their little avatar, like, they had something in the background that was all BLM while she was teaching, and he immediately emailed, like, the superintendent or the principal, and he was like, "This is why it's inappropriate for teachers to express their political views. Like, that's just not their role." So I think we're just seeing a lot of bleed over as to, like, them trying to take what are traditional parenting roles and, like, stances, and, like, they're trying to fill those spots, which is really inappropriate, I think. Um, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I did want to mention you talk a lot about, like, your gut and instincts and that being kind of like a spiritual cue, which I think is so interesting because I've only ever heard one other person say that. And I totally agree. I think when you have, like, that gut reaction, or, like, your, like, intuition is telling you, like, this is wrong, this is right. It's whether you want to call it God or the universe, everyone has, like, a different name. It's, like, telling you, like, ding, 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 you're, like, on the right path, or, like, no, you need to nudge over. And so many people don't pay attention to that or think that it's, like, very woo woo. So when did you start making that connection? Because I've, like, again, I've never heard anyone else say that except for one person. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I was never like a book smart kid. I was a ABC student, and I always tell my kids, get A's in what you're good at and pass what you're not. And that's
Mhm.
kind of how I grew up as a kid. I was terrible at math. I barely got by. I passed. I was awesome in reading English and writing and spelling, ironically enough. There were subjects I certainly struggled in, but I passed. Right. I was well rounded, and I have I don't know where it comes from, but this really good common sense, right? I say I got common sense, not so much book smarts, and I have a really good ability to read people and understand people, and especially when I'm face to face. I was really good in the clubhouse with each particular teammate on how to interact with them and treat them to get the best out of them. And I think some of the greatest managers have that too, where they can look at a player and, some guys need to be cuddled to get the best out of them. Some need to get their ass chewed out and to get the best out of them. I needed to be chewed out to get to be the best out of me. But I've always been very good at being able to read people and just have this gut feeling. I call it common sense. And I don't feel like the world has any common sense anymore. I always tell my boys, I would rather you guys be able to look somebody in the eye, shake their hand, be conversational, be charismatic, be personable, and make a 2.4 in college, and be able to look your CEO or your boss in the eye when you come in for an interview, be magnetic, be engaging, be fun, be confident, than to be this nerdy little fucker coming out of Harvard that goes in with his 4.4 GPA and it goes into an office, to a CEO, do an interview with it. Well, yes, sir. I'm very qualified. They can't even look you in the eye. They have no personal skills. They're on a computer all day. They have no idea how to be personable. So, especially in today's society, go fuck your GPA. Go and your diploma. All these things. I don't think I think it's irrelevant, anymore. Especially in colleges, with all the way they're indoctrinating our kids in colleges. To me, it seems like we're starting to kind of level into that world where we're all going to be working remotely and from home. And, that's one thing I think we've learned throughout this last year is a lot of businesses realize that we can work from home. You can do meetings from home. You don't need to be in front of, people all the time. And I think that's kind of dangerous in a way, but that's going to be the world we live in. And I think those kids growing up are going to be few and far between being able to be personable because we're relying so much on technology today. So, that's for me, just raising my kids to know how to be human in a world full of technology. That's for me, one of my biggest things.
I think that's a great place to end. That's like a very great, very wise lesson for people to take home.
The wise Huff Daddy, yes. Nobody ever called me wise.
I think you say some very wise things. So do you want to tell the listeners where they can follow you and how they can keep up to date with all of your future endeavors?
Yeah, if you can find me on Instagram, it's HuffDaddy76, and my Twitter is Aubrey_Huff. And I'm actually coming out with a t-shirt line, an apparel line called Alpha American Apparel. And it's going to be very patriotic, very pro-America, kind of funny sayings on t-shirts, hats, etc. And that's going to be aubreyhuff.com. And that's coming out here in the next probably couple weeks or so. So that'll be fun too.
Awesome. Very exciting stuff. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you giving me your time this morning. And hopefully we can do this again.
Absolutely, Candace. Very nice meeting you.
You too. That's it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have the time, please rate and review. And you can always hit subscribe to stay up to date with our latest episodes. I hope to have you back.